Revenge films.
My name is Hannah. I'm 29 years old and a full-time housewife. I live with my husband Ryan and our 3-year-old son Kevin. My in-laws live nearby, just the two of them. My mother-in-law, unhappy with her domineering husband, often comes over unannounced. I've never been comfortable around her. She dotes on her son, but shows no real affection for her grandson. Every time she visits, she says things like, "When Ryan was 3, he was much smarter. There's definitely something wrong with this child." Kevin was born early in the year, so he's a little behind other kids his age, but the doctor has never expressed any concern. When I consulted our family doctor, he just said,
"It's fine. He's just young for his age."
No matter how many times I explain that, my mother-in-law gets angry and says, "Don't trust that quack. Take him to a specialist." My husband, who's always been a mama's boy and naive about the world, just nods along, saying,
"Yeah, Mom's right."
After so many incidents like that, I started to dread seeing her. One day, while my husband was away on a business trip, she suddenly showed up. When I told her Ryan wouldn't be home that day, she fell silent, looking disappointed. Then Kevin walked up to her and said,
Here you go.
handing her a toy coffee cup from his playset. At that moment, she snapped. "You're still playing with things like this? Oh, you're 3 years old already. Oh, what a disappointing child. Is he really Ryan's son?" She shoved the cup back at him. Kevin looked scared and hid behind me. "He's just a little behind. He's only 3. Why would you say that to him?" I said sharply. Then my mother-in-law exploded. "I'm saying it because he's so much slower than Ryan was. No one in our family has ever had developmental issues. It's clearly your genes that are the problem." Hearing such heartless words broke my heart. All I could do was hold my son tightly, but I couldn't let it end like that, so I said, "Your son is actually more disappointing than mine." I exposed the truth about my husband's everyday behavior. She must have been furious. Her face turned bright red and she stormed out of the house. The next day, when my husband came home, I decided to seriously talk to him about his mother. I told him everything she had said, every cruel word. He looked annoyed and said,
"I actually agree with my mom."
When I asked what he meant, he said,
"Kevin's slow development is your fault. I was much smarter when I was his age."
In that moment, I silently screamed in my head, "Yeah, right." He's 29 years old, has a family, yet can't handle his job and only works as a temp. He can't do a single household chore or take care of himself. He leaves dirty dishes everywhere, tosses his clothes on the floor, throws garbage around like it's nothing, and won't even brush his teeth unless I tell him to. I honestly couldn't understand what was so smart about him. The truth is, he turned out this way because his mother spoiled him rotten. I couldn't forgive either of them for blaming me and insulting my son. So gathering all my courage, I decided to talk to my father-in-law. He's a strict, authoritarian man, and both my husband and mother-in-law are terrified of him. Since we'd never had a real family gathering after the wedding, this would be my first time speaking to him since then. It took a lot of courage to reach out. If he shared their views, it would be pointless or worse. I might even get scolded. But I was desperate enough to consider divorce, and I had no other choice. I gathered my courage and contacted my father-in-law, asking to meet him outside so that my mother-in-law wouldn't find out. When he saw me, he looked surprised and said,
"What's going on all of a sudden?"
Then he smiled gently at my son sitting beside me.
"I haven't seen you since the day you were born. You've grown so much."
When Kevin was born, my father-in-law had rushed into the hospital, but only looked at him quietly without saying a word. I assumed he wasn't interested in children, so I hadn't brought Kevin to see him since. Then, with some hesitation, I told him everything about my mother-in-law's cruel words, my husband's attitude, and what had been happening at home. His expression darkened immediately. After a long silence, he finally spoke.
"Your mother-in-law told me you didn't like me. She said that's why you didn't want me to meet my grandson."
I was stunned. I had never once said such a thing. The real reason we hadn't visited was because my husband always said,
"Dad's a difficult man. It's better not to see him."
When my father-in-law realized the truth, anger flashed across his face.
"I'm truly sorry for what your mother-in-law and my son have done to you."
He said sincerely, then he gently stroked Kevin's cheek and added,
"We'll meet again soon, buddy."
Before leaving. That night, my husband came home later than usual. The moment he walked in, he shouted,
"Did you see my dad?"
When I nodded, he suddenly grabbed me and yelled.
You shouldn't have meddled! Because of you, Mom got kicked out of the house!
According to him, after hearing my story, my father-in-law had called my husband and mother-in-law over after work and given them both a serious lecture. A rational and fair man, he'd been furious about their cruel, thoughtless behavior and had told my mother-in-law he wanted a divorce. Apparently, my husband and his mother had always been inconsiderate and often criticized by others. But they'd been hiding all of it from my father-in-law. He must have lied to my father-in-law because he was afraid of what might happen if I talked to him, and he didn't want me getting involved. Knowing that my son had been kept away from his grandfather for such a petty reason, it was no wonder my father-in-law was furious. Watching my husband lose his temper, I finally had enough. That's it, I'm done. I'm divorcing you. Let go of me. I'm taking Kevin and leaving, I said as I started packing my things.
You? A housewife? You can't divorce me! You're just bluffing! Take Kevin and go if you want. He's probably not even my kid, that slow little brat!
At that moment, whatever little affection I had left for him completely disappeared. Anyone who could insult his own child like that didn't deserve to be called a father. Without hesitation, I took Kevin and left the house. When I explained everything to my parents, my father was furious and immediately called my in-laws. After hearing the situation, my father-in-law apologized deeply and said,
I'm truly sorry for what my son has done. As compensation, Hannah will receive all of our savings, and there will be no division of assets. I'll personally make sure he pays child support every month.
Later, when I sent my husband the divorce papers, he panicked and showed up at my parents' house. Falling to his knees in front of me and my angry parents, he begged.
Please forgive me. I'll never say anything about Kevin's development again. If you don't forgive me, my father will disown me.
He bowed over and over, but neither my parents nor I forgave him. A man who doesn't love his own son has no place in this family, I told him, and we sent him away. Apparently, my father-in-law scolded him severely afterward. Because I later received a long apology message from my husband, I ignored it and told him to hurry up and submit the divorce papers. Not long after our divorce was finalized, I heard that my in-laws had divorced as well. My ex-husband, still a low-paid temp worker, was struggling to make ends meet while paying child support, and since his mother had been kicked out of her home too, the two of them were now living together in a tiny old one-room apartment. In the end, the husband, who had once been such a mama's boy, started lashing out at his mother like a rebellious teenager once they began living together with no privacy. The two of them now spend their days quarreling constantly while struggling to get by. Because of that, my mother-in-law's mental health has deteriorated, and she's become thin and worn out. As for me, when my son turned 4, I went back to work. With my parents' support, I finally began to build a stable, grounded life. Once Kevin got used to kindergarten, he grew rapidly. Now he's hardly behind at all and spends his days happily surrounded by many friends. I'm determined to keep raising my son at our own pace. From now on, in a place where no one will ever insult him again.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.